Hello, everyone. The subject of today is how to find your soulmate. And here, I'd like to start by actually dealing with a very relevant question. And that is, of course, what exactly is a soulmate? Because if you want to find your soulmate, you have to understand what you're looking for. And that might sound like a very simple concept. Soulmate, of course, everybody knows what a soulmate is, right? Question, do you really know what a soulmate is? Well, usually in the kind of standard way, most people think about a soulmate in a very, kind of Hollywood version kind of way. Usually we think of a soulmate in a romantic, poetic kind of attitude. We're saying, oh, there must be someone out there for me who is probably so sweet and wonderful, and most importantly, will be fully compatible to me. And this way together, when we will get together, when I see that person, our eyes will meet, and it's going to be like, wow, it's going to be like a moment that time stops, and we will totally see that we have love at first sight. And then as we get together, it will be magic, right? Sorry, I'm not trying to make fun of it, but let's be honest, that's the wishful thinking of a lot of people. And it might sound a little bit like a Hollywood movie or some Walt Disney fantasy. And if it sounds like that, I don't want to disappoint anyone. It's because it is that. The thing is that, yes, theoretically, of course, there could be people out there, maybe even that one special person, that with that person, we will have the most perfect compatibility and the most love that we've ever had before. We want that. We yearn for that. That every day as we wake up in the morning with that person, it is pure bliss, pleasure, happiness, compatibility on all levels, and it's just such a good connection. Well, of course, I'm not saying these things are completely impossible, but I would like to bring it back to the level of spirituality, especially from the Tantric perspective. Because as many of you know, in Tantra, if you've ever participated in any of our courses before, the Tantric relationship course, especially where we go deep into the subject of relationship and how can you make a Tantric relationship from a regular relationship. So we would like to know how in Tantra we can actually achieve that. And here the Tantric tradition tells us a few important things. Number one, when we're talking about a soulmate, we need to start with the first question, and that is, what is the soul? Because you want to have a mate to your soul, but if you don't know your soul, how would you know what is a soulmate and what is a soulmate that fits you? Well, the soul is a very elusive concept. It's used in various ways, in various traditions, and by various people. And when we're talking about the soul, usually, again, people have a lot of fantasy, kind of romantic association with what exactly is the soul of the human being. A lot of people would say that the soul of the human being is this very fleeting concept. It's almost like a butterfly in my chest. It's something that flies away from my chest when a person passes away. It's something that comes in and it's like some essence of who I really am. It's my true self, something like that. Well, the yoga tradition of India and the Tantric tradition of India and Tibet, when they study and analyze what exactly is the soul of the human being, they consider the soul to be, and of course, again, it's very difficult to really define it, because this is a concept which is very abstract. We need to understand that the soul, according to spirituality, is your true self in the most powerful essence that this word can be put. What do I mean by that? It means that this is actually a spark of the divine consciousness that we all have. It's like a mirroring of the divine consciousness that we all have within us. In other words, this is something that is very abstract, because for most people, when we're talking about who we are, what is our true nature, most people associate or understand that as the physical body. That's why most people would say, who am I? This is who I am. My body, my mind, my brain, my physical body, my name, the way I look, my, I don't know, style, the way I like to do things, my character. That's what most people conceive as their identity, or who am I. But in the yogic tradition and the tantric tradition of India and Tibet, they consider that the true identity of the human being is far more than just the physical body. We are told that the physical body in spirituality is just the first layer. And the physical body, in a way, is even an illusion, because that is something which is impermanent, even according to Buddha and Buddhism. But if we go deeper than that, we understand that there's some other levels to myself, to yourself, which actually make it who you really are. If we go deeper than the physical body, then what are you? Who are you? The answer would be that it's perhaps your character indeed. Maybe it is your mind. Maybe it is your emotions that define you. And here, even at that level, the tantric and yogic tradition would say that's not very true. They would tell you that actually your true nature is not your character. It's not even your sense of identity at the level of the ego, that most people, that's their bottom line. They would say, I am what my ego defines me, or my character, personality, that's who I am. It's my personality, right? I mean, even when you talk to people and you say, who are you really, or who is this person, I'm starting to describe their personality. This person is intelligent, this person is very intuitive, this person likes to do this and that's who they are. Even that is not accurate according to yoga and tantra. The yogic and tantric tradition would say, if you really want to know your true nature, you need to go even beyond your personality, even beyond those levels. Because all those levels, from the body to your emotions, to your personality, to whatever, your character, your ego, all these things are still impermanent, temporary, and they don't truly define who you really are. Take it in a simple way. All these things can change. Your body definitely changes as you grow older, and as you have all kinds of events in your life, maybe accidents, problems, whatever. So if your body changes, how can you say that is who you are? Because that would mean that you change as well. But we all know that I am still me. From 10 years ago to today, I am still me, but the body is not the same anymore. So who am I? Same goes for all the other levels. Your personality can have major shifts and can change. Your character, your mental patterns, a lot of things can change dramatically during your life, and yet you are still you. So who are you if you're not the body and all those other levels? And the answer is given here, that there is a deeper level. In Western terminology, this deeper level usually is referred to as the soul, but that term is very vague. What exactly does it mean, soul? Nobody can really define it, and that's why when we speak about the soul, or we try to identify it, it's a bit easier to try to understand it from the perspective of the tradition of yoga and spirituality of India and Tibet. There, in the tantric and yogic traditions, they define that not by the word soul, they call it by the word of Atman, or Jivatman, and that gives a little bit more clarity. Or sometimes it is called by other names, like Shunya, Shunyata in Buddhism, and other traditions give it different names. What actually is that? In the yogic tradition, they say that there is a part of yourself, and this is defined most clearly in a very famous text that many of you know of, called the Bhagavad Gita from India. And in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very classic text, there Krishna, which is a famous individual from the tradition, is being an enlightened being, even an avatar. And here I'm not talking about Avatar from the movies. We're talking about the actual word avatar, which is literally means a descent of a soul which is divine, not just talking about an average human being, but a divine, a divinity, like a reincarnation of the divine, like a reincarnation of God as a human being. And as Jesus was mentioned to be an avatar, and a few people other in the history of mankind Krishna was considered to be one of them. And there, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita defined the soul in a very fascinating way. He says the Atman, he says, is immutable. That means it does not change. It has no beginning. It has no end. It cannot be affected by anything physical. He goes into a whole description there. He says this, the Atman cannot be cut by sword, cannot be wet by water, cannot burn by fire, cannot anything. It's basically immutable, unchangeable, without a beginning or end, immortal, and it is perfect and has the nature of the infinite and pure bliss. And that gives us already a lot more clarity about what is the nature of the soul. In other words, if the soul, think of it this way, if indeed the soul is pure bliss, if it is immortal, if it is such an incredible thing, how come we are not all the time in a state of bliss, feeling immortal, feeling immutable, all these things, and yet we are dwelling and walking in this, what some mystics called the valley of the shadow of death, because in this life there's so many ups and downs and sorrows and pains and happiness and then sorrow again. How is it that we cannot be just like the soul is, perfect, happy, blissful, and all the rest? And the answer to that is because we are not one with the self. Funny enough, we have that true identity within us, but it is as if we are under some kind of a spell and we are not aware of our true nature. We can't identify ourselves with our true self. It's almost, sounds funny, but it's almost as if you have a mental disease. It's like you can't even identify who you are, like some kind of a schizophrenic or some kind of a person with major identity crisis. It's like we walk around, we live our lives, we do whatever it is that we do, and yet we don't know our true nature. We don't know the nature of the soul. And if we don't know the nature of our own soul, how can we find another soul which is compatible to this soul? It's like I have something that I want to find compatibility with something else which is identical, and yet I don't know what that something is. And that leads us to one of the big issues, why so many people fail to actually understand that and to say that, oh, I would like to find my soulmate. How can you find your soulmate if you haven't found your own soul yet? You don't know what that is, and that can lead to a lot of issues. But things go further than this, of course. So now that we have a little bit more clarity that the soul is not these romantic opinions of Hollywood from stories or poetry, which are mostly based on this romantic view, which comes, if anyone here knows about the chakras, and many of you know from our teachings, it mostly comes from the second chakra, Svadhisthana chakra, which is in the lower levels of the human being. And that is not exactly where true clarity comes from. Now, this compatibility that we are looking for, this wonderful union, this perfect connection that we're looking for, is not stupid. I'm not saying that that is just some silly romanticism. Let me clarify. Even if you don't know what your soul is, even if it is not clear to you what is the Atman, and therefore who would be compatible to me perfectly at the level of the soul, we do have some things we can do in order to still create or even find or generate a resonance that will attract a person who is fully compatible to me, or at least more, very much so, compatible to me. Let's get it clear before I go into how to achieve that. The first thing that the Tantrics will tell you is that actually there's no perfect compatibility. In the sense that to say that you have a soulmate, maybe, because maybe you would say some people are very compatible to me, but what Tantra says is that you don't realize it, but you could have many soulmates. The truth is that you could have various people that you are compatible with. It doesn't mean that there's only one person out there that you can be fully compatible with. There can be a few. It doesn't mean that you always find them. You might need to be more lucky or have good karma to find more and more people you're compatible with. But here comes the tantric or yogic approach to it. What the yogis would tell you is you can actually work on it. How? And that's a good question. You can work on it by making yourself more and more spiritual. That means if you do a lot of yoga, if you do lots of spiritual practice, you meditate, you open up your chakras, especially the higher chakras, more and more. If you develop yourself spiritually, authentically, I'm not talking about new age spirituality, which could be very, how to say, superficial, but if you truly transform yourself internally and your higher chakras, from the heart chakra to the throat chakra, to the third eye, to the crown chakra, if these chakras become more and more developed, more and more open, more and more predominant in your daily life, something will change in you. What would change, according to Tantra, is that you will notice that you become a more, what we would call, a global personality. As a result of that, your, let's say, possibility to interface more harmoniously with more different typologies of people, different characters, different individuals, that increases. As a result of that, you will find that suddenly people you may not have found attractive or compatible or fitting for you in the past, suddenly they become more fitting. Why? Because you suddenly become a more global individual. It's like your compatibility with various types of souls, if you want to call it that, or personalities or whatever, is becoming more multifaceted. And because of that, you suddenly become a kind of global person. And then you notice that you can find soulmates in every corner. Everywhere you go, you find that more and more people are compatible to you because you are more of a global personality, more of a, your soul, if you want to take it from a different perspective, your soul is coming more to the surface. It's becoming more evident. You become more closer to your soul. You become more aware of who you really are. And when you become more aware of that, you have much greater possibility to find yourself compatible with much more individual, or more types of individuals. Why is that? Because the truth of the matter, and now we come to the real crux of it, to the real cornerstone of this presentation today. Because the truth is that when we're talking about the soul, we need to understand that the soul's need, because, you know, in the romantic perspective, this Svadhisthana-based view, most of us think of this connection with a soulmate or whatever because we want it to be, you know, to find someone who fits me, that I can, you know, go on picnics with and wake up in the morning with and make love to and whatever, and it's going to be all so perfect and wonderful. But that is still very low needs of the human being. Yes, having a nice relationship might sound amazing to you, but it is still a lower need of the human being. What is the highest need of the soul? And the truth is that the real need and desire of the soul, and that's the thing that pushes us all the time to find another person to connect with, is the desire of the soul to unite. To unite. But the thing is that when we speak about unification, the unification or union that the soul desires to achieve, that union that we're looking for is not actually with another person. That's what we teach in the Tantric relationship course. We have the relationship between one human being to another, which is beautiful and can become really blissful. But eventually that connection or love, that love between one person to another will bring us eventually, if it is real and deep, and if we have opened our hearts truly, it can bring us to a love which will be divine. And that is why the true desire of the soul is actually to unite, but to unite with the divine. By becoming, how do we unite with the divine? Well, it's a bit of a tall order, because to unite with the divine, we need to become enlightened. And that's why when we talk about soulmate, it might sound like a very sweet concept. And yes, let's talk about how do I find the perfect partner for myself, which is kind of something that we all look for. Think about it. How many dating websites, dating services, how many people try to be matchmakers and help this guy find the perfect girl, this girl find the perfect guy for her. We love this concept. I mean, romantic comedies in Hollywood and whatever. We are all brainwashed by this concept. Oh, it would be so wonderful to find the perfect man, the perfect woman. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's great, but we are missing the point. The truth of the matter is that when we want to truly connect, the connection would be when our soul, this is actually the meaning of yoga. Many people don't realize it. When we say, I am doing yoga, the true yogic path means yoga comes from the root word yug in Sanskrit, which means union. But what kind of union? It is the union that yoga can bring you eventually between your soul, the individual soul, and the supreme, the soul of the divine. And by that kind of union, it's kind of, if you want to look at it in a poetic way, you throw your individual soul to the sea, to the ocean soul of the divine, and you become one with it. And that's true union. That is what the soul wants. That's your soul mate, so to speak. To find your soulmate means eventually to find the divine consciousness and to become one with it. And why is it, therefore, that we have all these needs and desires all the time to find this perfect connection with another person, to have a great relationship? It is the human attempt to connect with another soul, because eventually we feel that through this connection, when my soul and the soul of my partner feel so close, so unified, so beautifully connected, we actually have a small taste of the connection with the divine. And because of that, we actually always we have this desire. It's amazing to see. You can even find people in their 70s, in their 80s, still trying to find a partner, a soulmate. Some of us might say, come on, man, you're already 75, you're already 80 years old. I mean, wouldn't you give up on trying to find somebody to be with? Isn't it enough? I mean, we've done it. It's kind of towards the end. Why don't we just, focus on other things? Why don't you write a book or something? And yet people still, even no matter what age, will still have this yearning all the time. Where's this soulmate? Where can I find that wonderful person, man, woman, whatever, who will be my perfect connection? And that's because that thirst within us from our soul to find this perfect connection is always there. It doesn't matter if you're, 15 years old or you are 95 years old. It will still be there, because the yearning for the soul to become one with the divine never stops until you reach full unification through the state of enlightenment. So how can you find your soulmate? Let's get back to the level of relationships, which is the most relevant for many people. And at that level, the answer is very simple. In order to be able to find your soulmate, if you, let's put it in a different way, find it that it's difficult for you to find a soulmate. Some of you might say, I've been alive now for 35 years or whatever, and I've had a few relationships and they were usually kind of a disaster, or they didn't work well, or I could find that we're not really compatible. How can I find my soulmate? I really want that connection. How to do it? I just find it too difficult. Excellent question. I have a solution for you, and I already mentioned it, so I'll clarify it even more. If you find that for you, it's very difficult to find somebody that you truly connect with deeply, and it's like a soulmate, what can you do? Don't think necessarily that you just need to keep looking in different places. Oh, I'll go on another website. Oh, I'll go on another blind date. Oh, I'll just try to do this or that. Because your resonance will not change if you don't change. So you'll keep meeting the same people who are not compatible to you, who will test you. That's not what you're looking for. What you need to do instead is change your resonance. How can you change your resonance? Well, here is the key. Changing your resonance means first changing who you are, and to change who you are means that you need to do spiritual practice, authentic spiritual practice, by doing lots of sublimation practice every day. Those of you who did yoga and tantra with us, they know what that means. By working on your higher chakras regularly, and slowly you will find that the more the higher chakras open, the more this changes. And out of all the higher chakras, the one which is most relevant for this is the heart chakra, what we call Anahata chakra in Sanskrit. So by really working on your heart chakra, doing lots of yoga, music, meditation, Bhujangasana, the cobra pose, or various other asanas, pranayama for opening the heart chakra. When you do 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, if you have the time, of yoga to open your heart chakra, meditation to open your heart chakra, after 6 months or so, you will start noticing that your heart chakra is more open. You interact differently with people. You become more positive generally, more harmonious is the word I'm looking for. And as a result of that, your personality as a global concept, you become more compatible to more people. And then you'll notice that when you're trying to find a soulmate, you don't even have to make a conscious effort. What happens is that suddenly they come to you. And I say they because it's not just one. You'll find that there are different soulmates out there for you, and all of them could be amazing. And then the one that you truly feel connects with you, you can have a relationship with. And you'll see that you attract people of a completely different caliber by doing yoga. And when I say opening your heart, I'm not saying it in a new age kind of way. Oh, let's just sit there and give hugs to people and be sweet and I don't know, do whatever. Yes, it's nice to be a nice person, but there are actual practical techniques in yoga for opening the heart chakra. This is very practical and very real. This is not just some vague, oh, be a nice person, you know, be sweet. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about hard work, at least half an hour, 1 hour every day, preferably even more, of specific techniques to opening your heart chakra. From pranayama to asana practice, hatha yoga practice, doing music meditation, doing various other techniques of devotional practice, like doing bhajans and kirtans, and various other practices that you can do, but they need to be done regularly, daily, until the energy here starts becoming more and more effervescent, until it opens up and your heart chakra significantly opens up. And the good news is not only that you will easily find a soulmate or a person who is highly compatible for yourself, since we don't want to use the term soulmate so loosely as I explained, not only that you'll find them more easily, that beautiful love that you're looking for, that amazing connection, it comes with a big bonus. Because if you open your heart chakra, you're also elevating your level of consciousness amazingly. And that means that you will not spend so much time in your life having your consciousness, your mind, your way you react and interact with people in the lower chakras, as most people do, usually in Svadhisthana chakra. Then you'll find that generally in your life, you become a much more positive person, non-violent person, a very likable person, and basically a person that can offer much more to humanity, much more to the world than you were before. You can spread happiness and bliss, which is by itself an amazing, wonderful thing to achieve, and of course with a great possibility to truly find an amazing connection or a soulmate. So how to find a soulmate? There are practical things you need to do. Do the practice as I explained. If you have not yet studied with us any of these teachings, I recommend come do a course, especially the Tantra Relationship course or our TMT, Tantra Massage Therapist courses, where we work on these things one way or another, either through energy directly with massage or through teachings of Tantra in other courses, and then you'll see how this can be achieved. Now, I've had a lot to say on this, and now we're coming more close towards the questions and answers. I'm going to see if I have some questions to answer at this point. And a few questions are coming up. If you have any more questions, please, now is the time. put your questions in there and I will answer them. First question from Shauna in Arizona. Hello, Shauna. And the question is, so, is the concept of the twin flame a real thing, or is this a new age idea that everyone wants to have? What is the difference between soulmate and twin flame? It's the same concept, just using different words, for the simple reason that in the new age environment, people usually try to come up with different terms for the same thing, just for the sake of spicing things up. If I'm going to say, oh, in my, I don't know, workshop, we're not looking for soulmates. No. That's an old concept. We're looking for the twin flame, or for the, I don't know, what do you call it? Yes, the twin flame, or let's give it another name. I don't know, the same peas in the pod or whatever. Then it sounds different. It's new. It's kind of a different flavor of the same thing. Just like, for example, in the diet industry. Instead of saying, oh, I've got a new diet for you, somebody's going to say, oh, I've got the perfect nutrition for you. It's the same concept. It's the same thing, but it would be kind of boring. How can I compete with everybody else in my course if I give the same name to the same things? So I just call it by a different name, mix it up, spice it up a little bit, and then it sounds really cool, and I'll attract more people. That's the new age approach. There's a lot of competition there. So people just call it by different names. What is a twin flame? What flame are we talking about? Of course, it is the same concept of finding someone who is fully compatible to me, a twin soul, a soulmate. It's the same thing. So let's not get confused by all these funny concepts. And I'll move on to the next question. Again, I'm saying if you have any questions, now is the time. Yosef is asking, are soulmates specific to other people, or can we, through the right approach, make any relationship a soulmate relationship? This is a very, very good question. Thank you, Yosef. So I'm going to, one second. I'll answer this question from Yosef because it's a very, very important one. Actually, history, I'm talking about spiritual history, have shown many times that couples in Tantra that were legendary, like, for example, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and his partner Sarada Devi, or other soulmates like Saint Francis of Assisi and his partner, I forgot her name right now. She was also a saint herself later on. I forgot her name. In any event, and many of these kind of couples, we find that actually in their beginning of their relationship, it's not like they were, you know, spiritual people, spiritual couple. They came together and had the perfect connection as it was just like that. Not at all. Actually, in many cases, they were not fully compatible, and they worked on it. Just like Yosef is asking here, is it something that you can develop with a certain approach? And the answer is yes. By working together, by becoming more spiritual, by doing spiritual practices. Some of them are doing it through prayer, others through devotion, others through spiritual practice of actual tantra and yoga. Like, for example, even by learning tantric sexuality, the tantric sexuality can bring energy to the higher chakras, especially the heart chakra, regularly. And in this way, even your sexual practice with your partner can transform you, can be a yoga in itself, to make the soul open more and to find yourself more compatible as you carry on. So that's why definitely it's not that the soulmate is specific to one person. It could be, and I have had these connections in my past, where you sometimes find the person and you see, oh, while I'm kind of compatible with this man or this woman, only like 50% or something. But by working on it and changing the approach and doing spiritual practice, we upgraded our compatibility a lot more, and we became an amazing connection. And you can do the same, and there are examples. The Ramakrishna, for example, a great yogi from India who was also a tantric, and his partner, it is mentioned in the story of their lives that they had some issues, some problems that came up, and they were not fully compatible in the beginning. But as his partner, who became slowly enlightened yogini herself, as she developed more and more, they finally reached to become a couple, that is legendary in the history of spirituality in India. So definitely this is something that you can improve with any soul connection, not necessarily soulmate, and you can make it more of a truly soulmate connection with your own practice. I hope this helped. Let me see what other questions we've got here. Now, Frederick's asking, should the potential soulmate need to practice the same kind of chakra practice? That would be the ideal case, yes. If you are having a connection with one person, let's say, and you're trying to work on your relationship, definitely it would be ideal if both of you work spiritually on yourselves by opening the heart chakra or bringing the energies even to the higher chakras and doing regular spiritual practice. That is the key, definitely. If only one person works on it, it will still help a lot, but it would be very, let's say, ideal if both people work together on their practice, on their development, on their transformation, and then the results will be ideal, yes. Karen is asking, can one work with their current partner together to access the soul and unite their souls as a couple? That very much is similar to the previous question. So as I said before, the answer is a big yes. Do your practice together. If you have, let's say, a partner, let's say you have a husband or a boyfriend who is not really open to these things, try to bring him to a workshop or one of the courses that we offer. And I can tell you from experience that that person will open up. Because the problem is, and I've seen this a lot, especially in modern times where we find that women tend to be more open spiritually. And many times there are men who are, you know, I've got my business, I've got my work, I don't believe in this nonsense, you know. But the wife or the girlfriend is trying to get them, please come to the course. And they kind of resist in the beginning. Because the way we teach is actually very practical, very pragmatic, very, you know, clear cut through all these things. It's not a new age nonsense the way we do things. Then I can tell you that many men, once they come, they transform and they say, oh my goodness, this is really good stuff. And they immediately start taking it on board and doing the right practice. I mean, even if you look at me, I used to be an attorney, a lawyer, as many of you know, 20 years ago. And when I came to yoga and tantra for the first time, trust me, I was not looking for any, you know, wishy-washy type of teachings. I was very practical. As a lawyer, I was looking for something with clear-cut results, something real, something almost technical, not, you know, nonsense. And I was not disappointed. So if I'm, as a practical person, telling you this is the real thing, you can definitely pass this on to your partner, bring them over, and you'll see that they will definitely take this and enjoy and get good results from it. So let's move on. Terry's asking, do soulmates need to be involved in each other's daily life? What about sharing similar life goals and interests, etc.? Is this necessary? This is already coming closer to the teachings that we give in the Tantric relationship course, because there indeed we explain that there are a few levels to different relationships. And in the Tantric viewpoint of relationship, certain Tantric practitioners, from Osho to other practitioners like some of the initiates of modern Tantra, we find that they actually have developed models of relationship. And indeed, coming to your question, they say that sometimes the lower levels of relationship, which is kind of more daily life, or to be more specific, the sexual connection and so on, they need to be compatible, sometimes even more than the higher levels. There are different opinions here. I cannot go too much into this analysis. This will have to be done properly in a workshop. But the answer is that in some situations, this is very, very useful indeed. Some couples might find that having very good compatibility on the more lower levels, so to speak, the basic levels of life, can give a lot and can be very supportive to their connection. However, also there are some models of spirituality, of relationships, that claim that actually it's very necessary that the higher levels, like the purpose of life, the spiritual ideals, need to be compatible for the relationship to work very well as well. So this needs to be debated. There's all kinds of more clear and deep answers to this that we give in our course. I hope this gives at least some understanding, some general overview. So we have Natasha here. Hello, Natasha. She's asking, do both people feel a simultaneous resonance connection with each other at the same time? If they're indeed soulmate, this definitely can be the case. I've had this, and I'm sure many of you have had this experience in your life, that sometimes you see a certain individual for the first time and the resonance hits you like lightning. It's like suddenly you feel an immediate clear sensation of resonance, of, as you call, a simultaneous resonance connection, which is exactly that. And when that happens, then of course this could signal that there is a great potential there. I've had situations, and I'm sure you've had as well, situations where you had that resonance feeling of connection very strongly, but very quickly afterwards you realized it's not that strong compatibility. So it's not always a great indicator that everything is going to be perfect, but in some cases it can be an indicator of some very deep compatibility which can be there. So yes, this is partially true. Elena's asking, there's a concept that you first must suffer a karmic relationship before you deserve to meet your true soulmate. Is this true? Isn't every relationship karmic? No, it is not true. And of course, every relationship is a relationship that comes because of various karmic events that have brought you to this connection. And it means that there is a karma there. There's a karma always that pushes us to everything that we do in life, including finding different people that we interact with in relationships. So definitely the karma is a big factor in any relationships, but when you say you must suffer a relationship, it sounds a little bit like the opinion that some people have, that first I need to have a very bad relationship, like a very dramatically, I don't know, disastrous relationship, so I can deserve to find my soulmate or the perfect relationship. Or maybe some people believe I need to have a series of really horrible relationships to really learn how to really appreciate a good relationship. Not necessarily at all, I have to admit, simply because that would indicate some kind of a mechanism in the universe that the human beings have to experience suffering before we deserve something good. And unfortunately, this is a very common way of thinking. I've seen this so much that a lot of people seem to gravitate towards that. That could be very well because of the influence of religions on our lives, because we all have in various countries, wherever we come from, some religious background. Even if your family is not so religious, the country might still have a religious resonance. If you come from a religion like Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever, in many of these religions, especially the Judeo-Christian type of religions, we find that there's a lot of this guilt that comes with this, that first I need to suffer and then I only deserve something. And that can affect a lot of times how people think about their relationships. I've had 3 bad relationships, I really suffered, and now really I think I deserve a good relationship. That type of thinking is not really necessary. The truth is that and this is the answer, I'm sorry I had to go a little bit around it to give you a clarity on this, but the answer is this: the truth is that your resonance is determined by the configuration of your chakras, by your spiritual level of evolution. And if your spiritual level of evolution is not very developed, especially if you have a blocked heart chakra, which can delay a lot your spiritual evolution, it's very difficult to say that the person is spiritually evolved, but their anahata chakra is 0. That is impossible, really. But if that is the situation, then it means that your relationships, if you attempt to have relationships, there's a good chance that problems will happen. That's why really it is about developing yourself spiritually in order to have success with this. Let me see if I've answered this question fully. Yes, so definitely I can say, to conclude with this important question, that you don't need to have this mindset that first I have to suffer with some relationships before a good relationship comes my way. You can have an incredible relationship right here, right now. One of your first relationships can be a beautiful one, and maybe the only relationship you will have. And that's because you are already at the level of spirituality where the compatibility with that individual is very good. I have to admit, sometimes, even if you're not spiritually very well evolved, the relationship can still be beautiful. How would that be? If for some reason or another, the two people in the relationship are two people who may be both very spiritually not developed, but still extremely compatible on a very low level. What does that mean? Like, for example, if you find two people who are, let's take it without trying to offend anybody, let's take it on a level that makes more sense to people. Let's say that two people get together. One of them is intellectually very basic. Let's say that they have very small level of education. They are intellectually, the IQ is not very high, whatever. And the other person in the relationship is intellectually very powerful. The IQ is very developed. They are always very philosophically thinking and whatever. You can see that even from the standpoint of pure mentality, they don't really fit. One person sits and reads French poetry or reads, I don't know, quantum mechanics, and the other person works in the garden all day and, I don't know, is very, very basic in their level of thinking and so on. They only think about the most basic things in life. They will find that there's not too many things in common they can discuss. But what if both of these individuals are exactly on the same level of intellectual? I'm not talking about compatibility now on other levels. I'm just trying to give an example, which is the intellectual example. What if both of them are like, if you go, let's say I'm going now into Papua New Guinea, someplace where there's a tribe of people who is, you know, very much not developed in any levels of technology or whatever, education or whatever, and you find two people on that level, they are almost the same, they think the same way about everything, they will be very compatible, even though intellectually and perhaps even spiritually, they are maybe like pygmies, maybe like very basic individuals. And you would say, can there be no true love among a group of Aboriginal or, I don't know, very, you know, people who are not very developed? There can be still. So that's why we can say that definitely true love can happen anywhere, and sometimes even between people who are from a very, very different perspective, like one of them is from, I don't know, from some very basic background, and the other one is extremely developed in some ways. But nevertheless, coming back to the question is the point that definitely you don't have to suffer through various relationships in order to experience a beautiful one. You just need to be spiritually developed. The more spiritually developed you are, you might find that you can find the beauty, the attraction, and the compatibility with almost anyone, really, of any level, because spiritually you have all facets switched on. I hope this is clear. Let's move on. Mazen is asking, in the case that I have reached enlightenment, I really hope you will, as we all want to reach very soon, do I still need soulmate? Will I still have the desire? That's an excellent question. Excellent question. And the answer is that that depends on the path that you've taken. Because if you are, for example, walking an ascetic path, like if you are a Vedantic practitioner or a Buddhist practitioner who is not even interested in relationships, this is not the path, because they walk what we call in spirituality a dry path. Then for those individuals, when they reach enlightenment, they are not looking for any soulmate or any connection of this kind. For them, the connection is more as a guru and disciples, and they find disciples. That's their interest. Actually, in Vedanta, it is taught that once you have reached enlightenment as a guru, your next mission is, before you leave this world enlightened, is to find at least one person, you can find more, where you will find them to become a good disciple, that you can also get them to reach enlightened. If you leave behind you at least one enlightened person, then you can move on and you don't have to stay in this world and you are in a perfect state of perfection. That is their attitude. That's where we go on the ascetic path. But when we go on a tantric path, then many tantrics, even in the tantric Buddhism of Tibet, there's a tantric path in the Buddhistic teachings in Tibet, where you will find that there they actually consider that the couple connection can still work even if you have reached full enlightenment. Like, for example, the guru of Milarepa in Tibet, Guru Marpa, had a wife and a son. He himself became an enlightened guru, and he still considered the connection very beneficial. It was useful for him. His own son was a disciple, and he did it in a different way. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was enlightened. His wife, Sarada Devi, was not enlightened. He kept on teaching her and elevating her level of consciousness until at some point she herself became enlightened, and they both were an enlightened couple. And that was a different path because he had a tantric background. So depending on the background, on the spiritual path you're on, sometimes as an enlightened person, you would feel a relationship can be useful, beneficial, and can give a kind of support, while others don't feel it is necessary. For example, in the path of Yogananda, he mentions one of the great gurus in his lineage. His name was Lahiri Mahasaya. And Lahiri Mahasaya, when he was initiated by Babaji and became enlightened, Babaji told him, you should go back to the world, not stay with me in the Himalayas, with your wife and your kids, and serve as an example, as a beacon of light to the society around you, to show them that even if they have duties and relationships and families and whatever, they can still be enlightened and reach success. You don't have to run to a cave and become a monk in order to be an enlightened individual. So that's why some gurus choose to be in a relationship and enlightened in order to give hope to everyone else and to show that there are different paths and you don't have to become a monk to be enlightened. So I hope this is there. So the need for a soulmate is not so much of a need once you're enlightened, it's a choice, and that depends on the path and what your choice is in life. I hope this helps. Terry's asking, once you think you have found a match, would an astrology compatibility analysis offer any benefit? Yes, actually it could help tremendously, because what is the astrological makeup of a human being? The astrological makeup can give a lot of indications into how karmically the structure of the personality and even some things about the future of that person can be said, depending which astrological path you're taking. Vedic astrology more shows things about the future, while Western astrology more focuses on your makeup, what you are, how's your structure, and so on. So that's why using astrological support can be very good to give you some more indications regarding your partner and your level of compatibility. If you can't have that clarity within you because of your spiritual development, because of your own inner spiritual insight, if you're not there yet, that's totally fine. Then astrology can be a great tool, definitely, to support that. Last one from the TMT group in Estonia. Have you found your soulmate? Indeed, I have found my soulmate, and I'll let you discover who that soulmate is. It's a mystery at the end of our session. Thank you for everyone for all those beautiful questions. I hope you enjoyed our lovely live event today. And all of you around the world, thank you for joining us. And I would like to say, hope to see you again in our next live event here on Facebook. Enjoy your day wherever you are, your evening, and namaste from me. Thank you, and goodbye for now.